DeWanna Bonner just lost her cool after the WNBA Finals, and fans say she's blaming Caitlin Clark for the entire disaster. What was supposed to be a chance to cement her legacy turned into frustration, viral moments, and accusations that stunned the league. But was Bonner truly calling out Clark? Or is this proof of a much deeper conflict tearing the WNBA apart from the inside? Before the meltdown in the headlines, DeWanna Bonner was chasing what could have been the perfect ending to an already legendary career. A four-time All-Star and one of the most respected veterans in the league, Bonner entered the 2025 season determined to prove that experience still mattered in a league shifting toward youth and star power. Her move to the Indiana Fever was supposed to be a new chapter, a veteran leader teaming up with the league's most talked-about rookie, Caitlin Clark. The pairing looked unstoppable on paper. Bonner's experience and Clark's generational talent could have turned the Fever into instant contenders. But behind the scenes, it wasn't that simple. Rumors of tension surfaced early, with reports suggesting that Bonner felt her role was shrinking as the offense revolved more and more around Clark. She wanted to guide the next generation, not watch from the sidelines as the spotlight shifted away. The chemistry that fans hoped for never fully clicked, and midway through the season, the cracks were visible. Bonner quietly exited Indiana and returned to Phoenix, the team where she made her name, determined to chase one more title on her terms. The story should have ended with redemption, a veteran legend leading her team through the playoffs. Instead, the WNBA Finals became something far different. Disappointing performances, internal frustration, and mounting pressure set the stage for a collapse that no one saw coming. And when it was over, Bonner's emotions boiled over, sparking a storm that would dominate headlines long after the final buzzer. The stage was set for DeWanna Bonner to deliver a storybook ending, one last deep playoff run, with the Phoenix Mercury one more chance to lift the trophy. But the reality of the 2025 WNBA Finals was anything but cinematic. From the opening tip, the Mercury were outmatched. The Las Vegas Aces played like a team possessed, while Phoenix struggled to find its rhythm. Missed shots, costly turnovers, and defensive lapses piled up fast, and even Bonner's veteran leadership couldn't stop the bleeding. By Game 3, desperation was setting in. Bonner delivered one of her best performances of the season, pouring in 25 points and doing everything she could to keep her team alive. But even that wasn't enough. The Aces closed the series with a sweep, silencing Phoenix's championship hopes and leaving Bonner and her teammates stunned. What was supposed to be a defining moment of resilience became a nightmarish end to a long season. And that's when the frustration boiled over. Cameras caught Bonner shaking her head on the bench, muttering under her breath, and walking off the court without her usual composure. By the time she faced the media, her tone had shifted from disappointment to something sharper. She spoke about team chemistry issues, about how the spotlight had been elsewhere all season, and about how certain narratives in the league made things harder for teams trying to build. She never said Caitlin Clark's name, but she didn't need to. Fans instantly connected the dots, and within hours, social media was on fire. But that was just the start. Because what really set the internet ablaze wasn't just what Bonner said, it was what people believed she meant. The finals loss was painful enough, but what followed made it a full-blown firestorm. Within hours of the post-game press conference, short clips of DeWanna Bonner's comments flooded social media. Edited videos highlighted only the most heated moments, her remarks about spotlights being misplaced, and certain players getting all the attention. Fans and commentators didn't hesitate to draw their own conclusions. Bonner was talking about Caitlin Clark. A few clips went even further. In one, Bonner appeared to mimic Clark's signature celebrations during a timeout, something fans quickly labeled as mocking. Another showed her shaking her head when reporters brought up rookie impact, a moment interpreted as a direct jab at Clark's influence on the league. Whether those actions were meant as criticism or just frustration in the heat of the moment didn't matter. The internet had already decided the narrative. Hashtags like #Bonner vs Clark and #Veterans Fed Up started trending, and debate shows turned her comments into headline stories. Was Bonner blaming Clark for the Mercury's collapse? Was she exposing a bigger problem in the WNBA? Or was this all a product of fans reading too much into a few emotional moments? As the story spiraled, one thing became clear. Bonner's frustration had become bigger than basketball. It wasn't just about a finals loss anymore, it was about what she represented as a veteran in a league transforming around her. And the more the conversation grew, the more it started shifting from isolated comments to a deeper question. Was there real resentment building between the league's veterans and its rising stars? In the chaos that followed, one thing was easy to forget. DeWanna Bonner never actually said Caitlin Clark's name. Not once. Every headline, every trending post, every angry comment was built on interpretation, not direct accusation. And yet, the idea that she blamed Clark spread faster than any verified quote ever could. It's a perfect example of how, in today's sports world, perception often outweighs reality. So, what did Bonner actually say? During the now infamous press conference, she spoke carefully but emotionally about the challenges her team faced. She mentioned that the Mercury struggled to stay focused amid constant narratives and said the league was shifting attention in ways that make it harder to build consistency. She also noted that teams with balance and chemistry don't always get the same attention as those centered around one name. None of those comments were false, but they were vague enough that fans filled in the blanks. And in 2025, there's only one name dominating WNBA headlines: Caitlin Clark. Sports shows and podcasts dissected every sentence. Some hosts argued Bonner was simply venting her frustration at the league, not at any individual. Others were convinced she was calling Clark out for overshadowing veterans and changing the culture. The narrative snowballed even further when fan accounts started adding their own spin, claiming Bonner mocked Clark and blamed her for the finals loss. The truth was far more complicated, but by then, the damage was done. The deeper issue is that Bonner's comments hit a nerve that already existed. Many veteran players have quietly voiced similar frustrations that the league's marketing machine pours disproportionate attention into a handful of new stars while sidelining the veterans who built the foundation. Bonner's comments, intentional or not, gave voice to that resentment. To her supporters, she was standing up for herself and her peers. To her critics, she was bitter and out of line. The reality is likely somewhere in between. Bonner, like many athletes at the twilight of their careers, is watching a league evolve around her. She's seeing headlines shift, fan bases change, and sponsorship dollars follow the hype. For someone who's spent over a decade fighting for respect, that's not easy to accept, especially after a finals that ended in disappointment. And while Bonner may not have pointed a finger directly at Caitlin Clark, the subtext was clear enough for fans to run with. The message wasn't Clark caused this league is changing and not everyone's happy about how. But once a narrative catches fire, even nuance can't stop it. The headlines had already written themselves. Bonner blames Clark, Bonner snaps, Bonner divides the WNBA. And as that narrative grew, it triggered a wave of responses from fans, analysts, and even players' reactions that turned a single press conference into one of the most polarizing moments of Bonner's entire career. The backlash to DeWanna Bonner's comments was immediate and explosive. Social media turned into a battlefield within hours, and everyone had an opinion. On one side were the fans and former players who defended her, arguing that Bonner had simply said what many veterans have felt for years. "She's not wrong," one fan wrote on X. "The league is obsessed with one player, while others carry the load and get ignored." Another viral post read, "Bonner is speaking for the OGs, the women who built this league before the cameras showed up. But the other side saw something very different: bitterness, jealousy, and a refusal to accept change. She lost, and now she's pointing fingers," one user wrote. "Caitlin didn't cause the Mercury to collapse. Maybe look in the mirror." Others accused Bonner of trying to drag down a rising star simply because she's getting the attention the veterans never received. That split between those who saw Bonner as a truth teller and those who saw her as resentful reflected something much bigger than one final series. It exposed a deep cultural divide inside the WNBA. Media outlets capitalized on the storm. Headlines screamed, "Bonner takes aim at Caitlin Clark," "Veterans versus," "Rookies rift erupts after finals," and "League legend snaps in postgame rant." Talk shows debated for days whether Bonner's frustration was justified or self-sabotaging. Some analysts argued that the WNBA has always struggled with how it markets its stars and that Clark's arrival only magnified the imbalance. Others said Bonner's comments risked alienating new fans who discovered the league because of Clark. Even inside the locker rooms, the ripple effects were felt. Reports surfaced of other veterans quietly agreeing with Bonner's sentiment, even if they wouldn't say it publicly. At the same time, younger players were said to be frustrated, feeling targeted for simply being popular. "It's not Caitlyn's fault the cameras follow her," one anonymous player told a reporter. "We should all want that attention, it's good for the game." And what about Caitlin Clark herself? True to her style, she said nothing. No fiery interviews, no social media responses, just silence. That silence, though, spoke volumes. It allowed the narrative to keep spinning without interruption and painted Clark as calm, focused, and above the drama. For her supporters, it was proof that she was handling the situation with class. For her critics, it was a strategic move letting Bonner's words hang in the air without giving them oxygen. But whether she spoke or not, Clark remained at the center of the storm. Every conversation eventually came back to her: how she changed the league, how she shifted the spotlight, and how veterans were reacting to that shift. The longer the debate raged, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about Bonner's comments anymore. It was about what those comments revealed: a league that's struggling with its identity as it grows faster than ever before. And as the divide deepened, one question started looming larger than any other. Was this meltdown an isolated moment of frustration, or was it a warning sign that the WNBA's biggest internal conflict has only just begun? What DeWanna Bonner said, or was believed to have said, wasn't just about Caitlin Clark. It was about something far bigger, something that's been brewing beneath the surface of the WNBA for years. The growing rift between the veterans who built the league and the rising stars who are redefining it. This isn't a new story in sports, but in the WNBA, it feels sharper, more personal, and harder to ignore. For players like Bonner, the journey has never been easy. She entered the league in 2009, when crowds were smaller, media coverage was sparse, and women's basketball was fighting for relevance. Players worked second jobs overseas just to make ends meet. They built fan bases the hard way, city by city, game by game, year after year. Respect wasn't handed to them. It was earned in silence, without the spotlight. Bonner is part of a generation that gave everything to grow the game, even when no one was watching. And then came Caitlin Clark, a rookie who didn't just arrive, she exploded into the spotlight. The moment she stepped onto a WNBA court, ratings soared, merchandise sales skyrocketed, and every game she played turned into a national event. Corporate sponsors lined up, ticket prices doubled, and broadcasts broke viewership records. Clark wasn't just a player, she was a cultural phenomenon. And with that came something no rookie before her had experienced: unprecedented power and influence. That shift from hard-earned recognition to instant celebrity is at the heart of this conflict. To veterans, it can feel like their blood, sweat, and tears are being overshadowed by a wave of hype they never had. And even if Clark herself hasn't asked for that attention, it doesn't change the reality that the league treats her differently. Marketing revolves around her. Media coverage skews toward her. And in many ways, the business side of the WNBA now depends on her. Bonner's frustration then isn't just jealousy, it's the pain of watching a legacy being rewritten in real time. She and others like her paved the road that Clark is now sprinting down, but it feels like the credit and the reward skipped a generation. This resentment isn't about one finals loss or one press conference. It's about the growing fear among veterans that they are being written out of their own story. And the divide isn't just emotional, it's cultural. The league now caters to social media trends, viral moments, and brand deals, things that were barely part of the conversation when Bonner entered the WNBA. Older players see a league that once valued grit and longevity, now prioritizing engagement and star power. Younger players see an opportunity, a chance to take the women's game mainstream and transform it into a global product. Both sides want the same thing for the WNBA to grow, but they're clashing over how that growth should look and who should lead it. That's why Bonner's words hit so hard. They weren't just about Clark, they were about the entire direction of the league. They were about veterans who feel forgotten, about a new era that's moving too fast, and about a sport that's evolving faster than anyone expected. Whether she meant to or not, Bonner became the voice of that internal struggle. And now that the conversation is out in the open, it's not going back. But as emotions continue to rise and the league tries to balance its past with its future, one question looms. Can the WNBA find a way to bridge the gap between the ones who built it and the ones now redefining it? Because if not, Bonner's outburst might not just be a moment, it could be a warning of what's still to come. As the dust began to settle, the fallout from DeWanna Bonner's post-finals explosion left deep marks on everyone involved, but none more than Bonner herself. Her legacy, built over more than a decade of resilience, consistency, and leadership, suddenly looked more complicated. What should have been remembered as a veteran fighting until the end of her career was now overshadowed by headlines about frustration, resentment, and blame. The narrative shifted almost overnight, from Bonner the leader to Bonner the antagonist. Sponsors and media outlets noticed the change too. According to several reports, promotional campaigns that once featured Bonner prominently began quietly pivoting to other stars, and commentators debated whether she had hurt her brand. Even within WNBA circles, the tone changed. Some players privately supported her, saying she had every right to speak up about deeper issues. Others distanced themselves, worried that aligning with her words could put them in the middle of a media storm. The pressure wasn't just external, it was inside locker rooms and front offices too. Bonner herself tried to clarify her stance in the days following the finals, telling reporters she wasn't pointing fingers and that frustration sometimes spills out when you care this much. But by then, the damage was done. Screenshots, memes, and headlines lived longer than press conference clarifications, and the court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark maintained a masterclass in silence. Through the chaos, she said nothing. No subtweets, no press conference jabs, no thinly veiled shade. Her focus remained on basketball, off-season training, and future plans, and that silence became a weapon of its own. It painted her as calm, composed, and above the drama, while Bonner's every word and action were dissected under a microscope. The contrast between the two, one silent and steady, the other emotional and outspoken, became the story itself. To Clark's fans, her silence was proof of maturity and leadership beyond her years. "She's letting her game do the talking," one analyst said. "That's how you lead." To Bonner's supporters, though, that silence was frustrating, a refusal to engage in a conversation the league needed to have. "Of course she's quiet," one fan wrote. "She benefits from the system Bonner is talking about. Why would she challenge it?" And yet, the reality is that both women were caught in a system far larger than themselves. Bonner was not the first veteran to voice frustration over how the league treats its stars, and Clark was not the first rookie to become the center of attention overnight. But this moment, magnified by social media and amplified by public emotion, turned their careers into symbols of a much bigger story. Bonner came to represent the old guard's fight for respect, while Clark became the embodiment of the WNBA's future, and the tension between those two forces defined the entire offseason. Even now, weeks later, the echoes of Bonner's meltdown haven't fully faded. Her legacy isn't destroyed, she's still one of the most accomplished and respected players in the game, but it has undeniably changed. And as for Caitlin Clark, her silence has only made her influence grow stronger. Every passing day, she becomes less of a rookie sensation and more of the defining figure of a new WNBA era.